Yo, what's going on, guys? So I've already made this video before, but it was for last gen, and I think I kind of understand the tendencies a little better than I did back then. And I know a lot of people are coming into 2K21 knowing that we have tattoos now, and we have different colored hair. These are things that we didn't have. So I thought I'd update the video and actually go through what all these tendencies mean for all the new players. Now, first thing are the vitals. A lot of people don't do this, but these down here are very, very important if you want your character to play the way that you have them playing in your mind. So, play initiator, no, yes. It just means, does your character, are they able to call plays? So, obviously, point guards or Lebron, people like that, you definitely want play initiator on. Now, these, you have a little selection to choose from. Isolation, obviously, you just run plays where you're one-on-one. Same thing goes for isolation point and isolation wing. They're kind of the same thing. Pick and roll ball handler. In a pick and roll, you are the one with the ball. Pick and roll point is the exact same thing. Pick and roll wing means that you are the shooter off to the side during a pick and roll. So this is good for like Klay Thompson and that sort of thing. Then you have pick and roll man, which just means you're the big when you're doing pick and rolls. Post up low, you like getting the ball in the post deep on the block, as opposed to post up high where you get it more near the like elbow and stuff like that. And if somebody has guard post up, then while they're dribbling, they might just decide to just post up out of the blue, as opposed to these where they are all set to a play. Now cutter, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just run plays where you cut to the basket. Now handoff basically just means you're coming by the ball, getting a handoff. This sort of play type is good for guys that have like good play vision, good passing accuracy, that sort of thing. They can make plays, but not with their ball control. So this just kind of skips that point, puts them in a nice opportunity to actually do something. Mid-range, you literally just run plays, come off screens, and you get it around the mid-range. 3-point, the exact same thing, except you're running off screens for the 3. Now, depending on whether you have it play type 1, 2, 3, or 4, they go in this order. So if I want a guy who mainly isolates, then I'll put that as 1. I'll come off screens, 2nd, and then you don't have to fill all of them if you just want your guy to be one-dimensional, two-dimensional. But keep in mind if you do set all 4, that they go in this order. Now on to tendencies. So step through shot, it basically just means you use a lot of footwork. So Kobe, you definitely want this very, very high. With this though, you will find your character pump faking in areas where you might not want them to. But if your step through shot is high, then they'll probably, like I said, Kobe is probably the best example. You might pump fake twice, turn around and fade in their mouth. They'll use footwork to score. Shot under basket is just shooting right under the basket, right in this little hot zone right here. And understand the other shooting tendencies. You see close left, close middle, close right, etc., etc. They're just different little squares that fit onto the basketball court. Now these are just hot zones, so 2K categorizes whether you're hot in like this specific square or cold in this one or neutral over here. So when we go to tendencies and we look at shot close middle, we actually know what area of the court they're talking about. So if you're trying to make a specific build and you want them to shoot from these specific areas, then you can raise and lower for the corresponding area that you want. Now I will say you don't have to have these very high. If they're in the 80s, 90s, your guy will be jacking it. So if you just want a solid, well-around guy, 30, 40, 20, around that area is probably the best for all of these. Now shot mid-range does not have an area. So this is just in general, do you like to shoot middies? So I could put this very high, maybe like 85, and then for these specific areas, just leave them in the 20s, maybe 10, 11, 5 even. For some of the areas you don't shoot much. But if you are going to make like a Curry sort of build, you are going to have to raise these probably up to the high 80s, high 90s. I wouldn't go 99, it's a little crazy, but you can if you want that. So then we have shot 3, which is the exact same thing as just the regular shot mid-range, and spot up shot 3. So in situations where you're not running a play, your character will naturally want to spot up at the 3-point line to try to get open for a shot and to space the floor. So if you have this higher, obviously they'll do that more as opposed to if you had it lower. Off-screen shot 3, when you run plays for this person, let's say you have the 3-point play type, then when you come off those screens around the 3-point line, this will determine whether you shoot it or not, or later we'll get into the tendencies and there's the option to drive. So if you want your guy to shoot off every single 3-point play screen, then obviously you just put this 100. But if you do have this high, you're thinking he's going to shoot off screens and stuff, and you don't have the play type right, he's not going to do that. So make sure you have your play types correct, And then over here, we just have the same sort of area shots until we get into contested jumper 3. Now, contested jumper 3, you really don't want it very high. I'd say at the maximum for like an average player that, can make a good open shot where somebody's closing out late, probably 20s, 30s. I really, really, really wouldn't put it past that because, for example, if I have, like all of my three-point tendencies to 100 and then I have contested jumper 3 to 100, my guy will literally walk down the floor and immediately shoot in their face. And for anybody that wants to watch actual basketball, you probably shouldn't make them do that. So contested jumper mid-range is a little more crazy. I would suggest lowering this. This year in 2K21 Next Gen, you can actually make really tough shots. So you can raise this higher than I would recommend it as for last year. Last year would probably be around 10, 12, 5-ish. This year, I think you could get away with like 15 up to about 45. Any more than that, like I said, I think your character will just start jacking in their mouth. Pause. Step back jumper 3, obviously it's just the tendency to have your character do step backs at the 3-point line, and then step back jumper mid-range for the same thing. Spin jumper, your tendency to do spin jumpers, pretty simple to understand. Transition pull-up 3, this doesn't have to be very high for your character to actually pull up in transition. So don't think you have to put this like 85, 90, anything like that. For a Curry build, maybe you'd want it like 67, 75-ish. I wouldn't go much past that, or else they will completely negate every other like jump shooting tendency you have over here, because they'll go, I'm in transition, I have 100 transition pull-up 3. It doesn't matter what my ratings are, or it doesn't matter what the these other tendencies say. I'm just going to pull it, whether the rating's good or not, whether these tendencies are good or not. So some tendencies do negate others, so I wouldn't raise this one too much. Then drive pull-up 3. The difference between these are if you're doing very high pick and roll, similar to like Damian Lillard, that's all he does. He comes off very high pick and roll screens, and if you drop, then he'll just shoot during the drive. So this is basically the Damian Lillard tendency. This one you could put a little high, 45, 75, 80 maybe. Anything else I feel is kind of extreme. Drive pull-up mid-range. This is the same thing. This one's a little more touchy though, because you're always going to be around the mid-range. And like I said, if you have this 100, this is a badge that negates the other ones. So even if all of my mid-range tendencies are like 1 or 2 or 3, then he will still want to pull up when he gets around those mid-range areas. So for this, I believe for the Kobe build I posted like literally today, maybe yesterday, depending on the time this video goes up, I believe his drive-up pull-up was like 40, 45, and that's Kobe Bryant. So I really can't stress this enough. I wouldn't raise this to like 70, 80. You don't need it. Use glass. This is just the tendency that your character uses the backboard when they shoot. So for like a Tim Duncan or something, you want them to bank it often. 75, 80, high numbers. Now, driving layup. This just means an ordinary driving layup. The similarity of just holding the X button when you go to the basket. Standing dunk. There is no standing layup tendency. That kind of counts for shot under basket. So, for example, if you want like a Shaq build, you get shot under basket, you make that high. You get standing dunk, you make that high. And then when he gets right under the goal, he'll try to dunk it as often as he can. Driving dunk. Now this competes with your driving layup. So if driving layup is 95 and driving dunk is 25, you might think, oh, well, he'll do it 25% of the time. No, he won't at all. They compete. So you want these leveled out. Obviously, I'd rather just have driving dunk higher than driving layup for a lot of my builds, but obviously if you're going for like a Steve Nash or a Chris Paul or something, you don't want them dunking. So you'll have to play around with these and level them out from each other. Flashy dunk. Now this is its own thing. If you have driving dunk 0, then they will still do dunks if you have flashy dunk up. So similar to the driving layup, driving dunk, they compete. So if driving layup 0, driving dunk is 0, then every time he goes to the basket, he will technically try a flashy dunk. That doesn't mean he will dunk every single time, because depending on the defense, he might not be able to get the animation. So alley-oop, this means that he will want you to throw them to him, not to throw them. He wants to catch alleys. Now, this doesn't really work with any sort of play. There's no really... there are alley-oop plays in the game, but I think they're based off of cutter. So cutter, alley-oop, if you just want to make an athletic guy, that's a good combo. Put back, you just put back shots off an offensive rebound. Crash. This does not mean crash the boards at all. This means when you go up for a shot, you will fall on the ground. I haven't really ever noticed that you get more foul calls if you raise it. So if I'm being honest, if you're trying to make a good build, I would just leave it fucking 0. Now, spin layup, hop step layup, euro step, and floater, they all compete for, the dice roll that 2K will give them whenever they go to the basket. So once again, you just level these out, get them to do the signature moves that you want them to. Drive setup. So every time your character catches the ball, 2K is just a game of dice rolls. So 2K will dice roll them based off their tendencies as to what they will do. If you have pump fake very high, then it will choose pump fake. If you have jab step very high, it will choose jab step. Idle means they do absolutely nothing when they get the ball, and shoot means they just immediately shoot it when they get it in a triple threat. So once again, you do not want triple threat shoot 100 and these 0, or else your character will just start jacking it up. Setup with size up, setup with hesitation, and no setup dribble, or kind of a trio here. Every time your character decides to drive, if you have setup with size up 100, this 0, and no setup dribble to 0, then every single time they start to drive, they will start a drive with their size up. And if you don't like their size up, you can do it with a hesitation, or you can kind of level these out. So no setup dribble will cancel these out. So I can have this high, let's say 64, we'll put setup with hesitation like 75. If I put no setup dribble to like 95, then that's typically what I like to do. You'd probably think, oh, well, 95% of the time, these don't kick in. That's not true at all. These things are not based off percentages. Like I said, they all compete. So 95, 71, 64. If this is higher, then he will do it more often than this. Just remember, no setup dribble is one that can cancel out. So if I have this 100, then he will not do these. Now, driving. If you have drive very high, then they will not drive when they see a lane. They will just run forward like Giannis. So you kind of want to keep this smart, anywhere from like 70 to 85, 90. Anything past 90, I feel like they're a little crazy. Spot up drive. This is kind of the opposite of spot up mid-range and spot up 3. When they catch the ball, you've seen this animation before. Sometimes when your character catches the ball, if they have spot up drive very high in their tendencies, that means the second they catch it, their character will get a momentum animation where the second they caught it, they're already moving to the basket to drive. So like the usual theme here, these compete. So if you have spot up mid-range very high, spot up 3 very high, and spot up drive very low, then he's probably not going to do this often. Off-screen drive, this is what I was talking about earlier. If you have off-screen mid-range or off-screen 3 very high, then he's not going to do this. When he comes off a screen on one of those plays, he's going to basically do a dice roll and then just determine based off the defense whether he's going to shoot it or he's going to drive. Drive right. If you have this 50, then he will drive left and right an even number of times. If you have it more so to the right of 50, then he will start driving right more than he drives left. If you have it 40, for example, then he will start driving left more than he drives right. Now, driving crossover, all of these moves here are just different dribble moves that your character will do. If I'm being honest, these need to be very low. I'm talking like 5, 2, 10. If you want like specific moves that your character is really, really good at, you want them to do them all the time, then the most I would go is like 45. Usually, though, I do like 25 or 30 for the signature moves that these characters will do. Anything higher than that, and your guy just looks like he's doing too much, and it's goofy. Now, common theme again, no driving dribble move will cancel these out. So I like to put it around 90, 92, 95, because if your character has a lane, you don't want them all of a sudden doing a 7 dribble combo and completely messing up the play. So having no driving dribble move high is good for those situations. Now, attack strong on drive. In my other tendency video, I didn't completely understand what this did. I used to just think if you had it 100, then your character will just force his way to the paint when he drives, and if you had it 0, then he gets pushed out. That is not what happens. So if you have attack strong on drive 100, then you are just completely blindsided. You just tunnel vision, and you just run forward. If you put it to something normal, maybe like 75, 78, 80-ish, then your character will be able to actually determine the situation more and think to themselves, do I need to keep driving? Are they guarding me well? Should I just pull it back out? So you don't want this 100. Honestly, I recommend probably about 75, 80, 85 for most of your builds. Now, passing, I believe for my Kobe build, I did like 35 dish to open man. Basically what this does is it will affect the assists that your character gets when you do simulation. And if you're watching the game, then, if you put this to like 85, your character will pass a lot. If you have it like up in the 90s, then I think they pass too much, and they'll like pass when they should have just shot and they're wide open. So once again, you kind of have to fool around with that, find a number that works for you. Flashy pass. Now, even if you have this 100, this does not mean that every single time they do a pass, it will be a flashy pass. That's not what it's saying. But obviously, if you want them to do flashy passes often, I would put it to 100. They don't do it super often, so I wouldn't really worry about having it too high or too low. Alley-oop pass, on the other hand, if you have it too high, this is 2K. There are some alley-oops where the character just refuses to catch it, and they just kind of hop off to the side. They're a little bit better about this in next gen because they have the contact lobs and such, and they have like a momentum system. But I think if you go any higher than like 70, then you're pushing it. You're probably going to get a bunch of turnovers after that. Now, post up, this is just the tendency that your character decides to post up. Like I said, if you have this 95 and you don't have any play types about your character posting up, then you're actually not going to post up that often. So, like I said, please get your play types in order. Also, keep in mind, if you do have guard post up is completely good for bigs too, because sometimes when a big is on the perimeter and they have a mismatch in the game, they'll probably just pass it. But if you have guard post up, then they'll post the guy up. They might still post them up if they have this high, but I would put guard post up on them just to be sure. Now, post shimmy shot, this is the whole Kobe shimmy before you fade or do a hook. That's the only two things it affects. So, for example, if I have post hook left, 100, and I have post shimmy shot 100, then every time he does a post hook left, he will do a shimmy shot, or like a shimmy shot hook. Now, I don't think that shimmy shots go in as often. I haven't really seen them go in as often. I wouldn't really recommend doing it. If you want them to be flashy, maybe you could raise it a little bit. But for like being efficient, I wouldn't put it too high. Post face up, this is where you actually leave the post and turn around and face your defender. Post back down versus post aggressive back down. These compete with each other. So the whole thing with post up is they have a lot of settings here. Every second your character has the ball in the post, every single thing here is competing for what will happen. So if I have shoot from post like 100, then the majority of the times he's not actually going to back anybody down. He'll immediately start shooting, and he'll choose to shoot based off of these. So right now, if he were to get the ball in the post, he'd probably immediately do a post hook to his left before he would do any of these three. Now, it's not just those three. Obviously, you have post up and under, post hop shot, post step back, post drive, post spin. You have a whole bunch here. So you can really choose what their go-to moves are when you're making this character. So just to clarify, post hook left, post hook right. If you want them to do hooks with their right hand, you would actually want post hook left because they're going to their left and up with their right, and then right would be vice versa. They're finishing with their left. If I have post up and under very high, then he will attempt one of these shots and pump fake it and then try to get the defender in the air and then take an even better shot because they fooled them. Like I said, based off the tendencies right now, if I had post up and under 100, he would probably do a fake post hook to his left and then take another step to the basket and try to get a better shot. Now, keep in mind, post shimmy shot still works with this. So, for example, if I have post shimmy shot really up, and I have one of these really far up, and I have post up and under up, then he will do a shimmy fake into a post and up and under. I'm stuttering out of my fucking mind here. So if you want to make a Hakeem guy, a guy with a bunch of footwork, you would want to go over here to jump shooting, give him a good step through shot, and then go to post and give him some shimmies, give him some up and unders. Keep the defense guessing, when you're actually going to go up, when you're going to fake. Now, post hop shot. What this is, you basically just hop away from your defender and you take a jump shot. This didn't really go in before on 2K20. If you're still on current gen, I would not recommend having this very high at all. You probably should just have it 0. If you're on next gen, they can actually make these shots, so you can put it accordingly. With a lot of these, like I said, they compete with one another. So keep it low, or else your character, the second they get it in the post, will immediately do one of these moves. Post step back shot, you literally just do a step back when you're in the post. Post drive is for stronger players with a little bit of speed versus post spin, which is more for like a finesse, and it works with the post spin technician badge. Now, post drop step, that's basically the Shaq move. You just get the ball, and then you just strongly turn towards your defender, throw them out of the way, and go up with it. Post hop step, I think this is still the worst move in the game. I just recommend you put the 0. What your character does, they get in the post, and then they hop towards the basket, but there's obviously a defender between you and the basket that you're posting up. So you just run into, this other defender, and it doesn't work out. It just puts you in a bad situation. You'll either get a 3 or you'll throw up a dumb shot. So I would just leave the 0 for the most part. Shot. So this will determine how many plays are ran for this character. So if you want your guy shooting all the shots, you would want this 95, 99, 100 even. Touches, this is how much they get the ball. So if you want them to be someone who runs the offense but doesn't shoot it, you could lower shot and raise touches very high. Now for roll versus pop, every time a big man sets a screen, it will do a dice roll. And if you have this 100, then that means they roll every single time. Rolling is when you set a screen and then you go to the basket after your screen. Whereas if I have this 0, then my character will pop every single time after I set a screen, which means I'll set a screen and I'll go off to the 3-point line to try to space the floor and get a shot. So if I have this 50, they will do it the same amount versus like 55, I roll more, versus 45, where I will pop more. Transition spot up. This is for guys like Ray Allen. Every single fast break, you want them to run to the corner and just get open for a shot instead of actually going to the basket. Now, for these 4, ISO versus poor, average, good, and elite defender. If you want your guy to be an ISO player like James Harden, obviously poor defender, you would want to raise this like 100, because if there's a bad defender guarding James Harden, he's just going to call everybody off. Even if there's an average defender guarding James Harden, you should probably put this like 95, 98, something like that. Good defender, elite defender, etc. Now, play discipline. So if you have this 0, then this character does not want to run plays. If they get the ball, they will completely call off the play. Versus if I have this play discipline 100, they always stick to the play. They never break out of it. They run it to completion, even if they think that I had an opportunity. So for honestly your good players, they all have this like very, very low. Because if they see an opportunity to score, because a good player honestly has a bunch of opportunities to score, they will just break out of the play and do something themselves. So keep it low for good players. Keep it high if you want to run like a Spurs type of offense and they're more of a team player. So pass interception, there's really, really, really no reason to have this not 100 if you're trying to make like the best character ever. All this means is they will go for steals in the passing lane that they think they can get. Because I have this 100, if I throw a pass by them and they, probably couldn't get it, they're not going to go for it and put themselves out of position. It's honestly only a good thing. Take charge. Now, if you're playing on current gen, I'd recommend you putting this 0. Charges do not work in current gen. Next gen, though, this is what this video is about, you can actually do charges, and I think charges might be a little OP. So at least right now, when the game first came out, no patches, no updates or anything like that, you can actually put this to whatever you want. So if you're going to go for like a Kyle Lowry, who I think it takes charges all the fucking time, then you could put this fairly high, and he will actually attempt them and actually get them to work. On-ball steal, when they are guarding the ball, they will go for a steal. Like I said, it's just a big dice roll. Every second the guy is in front of them, the game is constantly doing dice rolls based off of this tendency, whether they will go for a steal or not. So if you have this 100, your character's a park player, and they're just going to foul out of the game if you're playing like a realistic, 12-minute quarter game. Contest shot, you want this high. If you have it too high, though, then they will try to contest every single shot, even pump fakes. So honestly, 80s are around the best area for that. Now, what contest shot does, though, is it's kind of like using the right stick and putting your hands up. Whereas block shot, is actually pressing Y or, triangle and actually going for the block. So if you want your guy to always go for blocks, like a old Dwight Howard or any type of good shot blocker, you would want this probably very high, 91, 94-ish, and you would want to set contest shot low. That is if you want them to just jump at everything. Big guys can get away with this. I recommend for anybody that you actually want to get blocks, at least having it like a 70. 2K usually has this very, very low on a lot of characters. That's why, if you've ever noticed, all the bots in 2K never go for chase down blocks. If you're ever in front of them in transition, you're completely safe. Even LeBron. So 2K's LeBron tendencies does not have this block nearly high enough. And the reason they do that is because simulated, he would average too many blocks. And 2K cares more about that than actually having the character play more like himself when you play the game. So foul, Whenever you try to go for a steal or a block, if you have foul very high, then you're probably just going to foul them instead of actually getting the block. So if you're trying to make the best character ever, have this 0, hard foul, same thing. And that's basically it. Now, I did go over these for 2K20, and that video might, I think I was more relaxed in that video. I'm really just trying to get this shit out as quick as possible. There's a whole lot here. So if I said something and you don't fully understand it, I might have explained it in a better way or a different way in my other video. That video has a lot of views that did really well, and a lot of people said it helped them. So maybe I explained it better there. I would try that out before, you just give up. If this video helped you, leave a like. And that's basically it. So you can fuck off now.